Welcome to all of our ISM members joining us today, to all of our guests, to our program, which is hosted by ISM New Jersey. I'm Kathy Tierney, the Executive Director. Our speaker for today is going to be Jane Tierney. She is actually, I should say, a returning speaker because Jane has spoken for this webinar series for several years now, and we thank Jane for doing that for us. Our program for today will be Talent Makeovers for 2024 and beyond, and I think this is going to be a really exciting topic for our audience today. Also, please be sure to ask questions by using our chat or our Q&A function. Jane will take the questions, I'm sure, probably towards the end of her presentation. We will be recording this event, and we will be sending that out later today with your CEH as well. Now on to the presentation and to our speaker. Jane is the founder of our company, purplelink. She shares with her clients a better way to obtain value through the supply chain. Jane is an engineer with an MBA, Greenbelt, CPSM, and CPSD certifications. In addition to running her business, she also teaches operations and supply chain management courses in the California State University system and serves on the advisory board for the Operations and Supply Chain Management program. In 2020, she co-founded the Southern California CSRM Council for Local Executives focused on supply chain risk management, which also hosts an annual supply chain risk symposium. Jane is a speaker, author. She also offers her dynamic dialogue webinars, and she conducts numerous workshops on different topics. So at this point, I'm going to turn the program over to Jane.
Thanks, Kathy. It's always a pleasure to be with ISM New Jersey and all of your great participants and everything. It's always fun to talk to you. So today we're going to talk about talent makeovers. There's a lot of things about talent in the news, especially relating to site supply chains. And so we're going to talk about some of those challenges. I'm going to show you some of the impacts to companies, but as well, some of the impacts that these talent shortages or these gaps have on individuals. We'll talk about some ways to address that, and I'm going to offer you some additional ways to get support for your own needs. So I'm going to talk about this in a generic fashion a lot as a manager of an organization, but also I'll try to emphasize where I think these things are important if you yourself are looking for a different position, a better position, or ways to and even if you want to stay in your current position and you just want ways to do personal development, personal professional development for your own career. So we'll look at these things. So let's look at the challenges and some of the gaps. There's a lot of things going on in the business today. There's the business environment is crazy. We have all kinds of things like AI, the Internet of Things, blockchain. There's a lot of global issues with global trade and potential, active and potential skirmishes going on. I'll say skirmishes, that's not to diminish those because they're full all out wars for the people that are living through those in Ukraine and in Gaza, in that area. And there's many other wars going on in the world as well. But we here in the United States, we look at a lot of the things that we are dealing with. Companies are still struggling with work from home versus remote work. Workers like remote work and companies like on-site work. So there's a continuing balance. There's a continuing balance of that, trying to get the right balance and to try to work through that. We're looking at flexibility and resilience in supply chains, and some people don't even know what those are. They just talk about them like we want something better, different, so we'll put this name on it. A lot of digital transformations going on. We have a lot of natural and unnatural disasters here in the United States. We have experienced some severe weather the last couple of years, and we expect that to continue. And always, always, always people in supply chain are getting a lot of pressure to reduce costs in every way, shape, and form. So we're going to look at some skills that are in demand. So here's some supply chain skills. This is one category of skill. This includes things like business ethics, all of the oral and written communication that we do in supply chain as supply chain professionals, including emails, telephone calls, writing purchase orders, writing up specs, translating things for suppliers, translating suppliers' information to our stakeholders, all of those things that are and that are issues. So that's important for both oral and written. And I remember being in the corporate world versus my current role as more consultant, but I was always couching people that, email is a one-way conversation. Texting is a one-way conversation. You send something out into the ether and you hope that somebody picks it up and understands it the way that you wrote it. So if you really need to have a conversation, then you need to pick up the phone and make sure that you connect person to person and can have that discussion, make sure everything is clear in that regard. There's a lot of requirements always in supply chain. We have to do stakeholder management. We have to make sure that all of the involved parties are familiar and up to date on what's happening with all of our activities. We're building relationships with those stakeholders while we're building relationships with suppliers, representing our company externally to suppliers, and we're also representing our department internally to our other stakeholders and partners. There's a lot of things that go into supply chain, including things like critical thinking, big picture thinking, strategic thinking, a lot of business acumen that's required. Part of that is negotiation. Part of that is understanding things like return on investment, payback periods, basic financial analysis, being able to read P&L statements and balance sheets for our suppliers and understanding that and assessing their financial viability. We're doing more and more these days. You hear about business analytics. I teach at a couple different Cal State University campuses. One of them has just implemented a data and analysis major in the supply chain area. So it's part of the supply chain college, but it's a whole major in data analytics, which is a big step forward, I think, on that. And then project management is a skill that I put in supply chain skills. It crosses over into lots of other areas. It's a hard skill, it's a soft skill, but I think understanding that, especially in relation to new product launches or product updates, is very important for people in our profession to understand. Another area of skills is going to be generally what we call soft skills. This list is right there for you. Now, again, communication, but it's both verbal and nonverbal. And the soft skills are around more of the nonverbal skills, whereas I call them the supply chain skills, or the harder skill is actually like grammar and punctuation and phraseology and things like that. Another one, and we need to be good at this in supply chain, is being able to persuade people and influence people, whether it's, again, internal stakeholders or it is our supplier that we're trying to influence or persuade. Many times I was part of when I was part of the corporate organization, I was part of a sourcing selection team, and we had different ideas of who the ideal supplier would be. We had maybe 3, 4 candidates, and we needed to all agree on, at least come to some consensus on which supplier we were going to choose, which often involved a lot of influence or persuasion, sometimes just stating your case very carefully, making sure that everyone, whenever possible, everyone after that exercise understood the supplier of choice, why that supplier was chosen, and could support that decision and go back to their respective organizations and say, even though that wasn't our first choice, it was the best solution for the company for these reasons. So that being able to persuade and influence was important internally, as well as, come on, Mr. Supplier, we need that. And, we don't want to have to pay every time we have a little bit of a change, or we have ask you to hold something for us or expedite a little bit for us. So all of those things come into play. Overall leadership, teamwork, decision making. Again, all of these are skills that we can talk about and say, yeah, I know what leadership is. I definitely know what teamwork is. But these are very hard skills to define and come up with improvement plans for. So if you tell someone they're not a good team player, they're not very good at the teamwork, how do you actually get them to change? Or what is the action that you can take to get them to improve in that area? Some people can do that, and some people have that ability to embrace that team environment. Some people really always like to prefer to work individually or alone, which is probably not the best fit for a lot of supply chain jobs, but it can work. But then there's skills like leadership or decision making. You need to be a better leader. Okay, what does that mean? Because I don't have a leadership position and I'm just this person doing this commodity management, category management, or taking the lead on this. So, what does that mean in terms of leadership, and how do I get better at that? I had a friend that worked for Cisco and was a project manager and wanted to get bigger, broader projects. And when in the course of his performance review, he said, how do I get those jobs? And they said, well, you need more experience managing more complex projects. Okay, well, that's what I'm asking for. And you're telling me I can't get one because I don't have the experience. How do I get the experience? Can I partner with somebody? Can I do something to, expand those skills on the job, or what do I need to do? And because he did not get a satisfactory answer, he left the company and went to another company. So sometimes that's what happens. It's very easy to say, oh, yeah, project management. But what are the skills? What are the aspects of that? What are the details that you need to convey to someone so that they need to know what to improve, or that you can help them improve? In supply chain and operations, we need to be able to work under pressure, under stress. Every day is different. One of the things I've always said I love about operations and supply chain is that no 2 days are the same. And then one of the things that's the most stressful is I will have a list of things I want to get done this day, tomorrow, the next week. And I will feel good about that. I have a plan, I have my activities, and I come into work, and guess what? Some supplier didn't deliver. We found that we have rejected parts. We have a quality issue. This supplier is now defaulting, whatever the crisis of the day was. And that threw everything into chaos and kept me from executing my plan. But that didn't keep me from still being obligated to complete the goals and complete those tasks. So you learn to be a good juggler, you learn to work under pressure, and you learn to be flexible and adaptable in these jobs, which is a good thing. Those are good things. And one of the things that's very important today is for your colleagues and your managers to feel like you are self-motivated, which means you pick up the ball, you will run with it, you will look for opportunities to contribute rather than being told. And this, it might be a generational thing, but I'm seeing different articles that talk about workers today and the motivation levels. So that's soft skills. The third group I'm going to talk about is growth skills. Now, this is an area that I think is a little bit different way to look at things, but this has come up in the last couple of years in several of the research things that I've done. And these include things like managing resources, this visionary thinking. Again, something not real easy. You need to expand your vision. Okay, how do I do that? Your capacity for change and capacity to manage change. Are you comfortable with things changing around you a lot, or does that make you uneasy or unable to make decisions or make good decisions or finish what you start? Being able to collaborate and build consensus. These are important things. Collaboration means win-win, so that we all walk out of here with a win-win attitude, that I don't feel like this is a traditional negotiation where either you won or I won. And I've worked with a lot of professionals, too many actually, that have been in the supply chain and procurement profession for a while. And this is difficult for some of them to really embrace because they're used to win-lose. And getting past that win-lose to a win-win can be much more satisfying for individuals and much better outcomes, especially with long-term repercussions for the company. So the ability to resonate and make sense and make people say, oh yeah, I understand that. I get that. And then risk-based thinking and decision making. So if we learned anything from the pandemic, we should have learned that risks are everywhere and that we need to make decisions considering the possible risks, the potential of the occurrence of that risk and the potential impact from that to see how that will all come together. So those three skills are important. Here's a little update I found from I believe it was February 16th. So this is kind of hot off the press from a team that talks about supply chain management skills for resumes and careers. So the supply chain skills, just what I said, a lot of those right there, 20% is important. 20% of the execs feel like this is really a key thing that they're looking for and that they expect their people to have. Logistics experience, knowledge, expertise, 9.5% of the managers surveyed said this is a really important skill to have. This is one where I see often that supply chain professionals differentiate across the supply chain. Some are very good at procurement, some are very good and very experienced at logistics, some are very good at the operations piece of that, some are good at all. I rarely find someone who is great at all of those, but there are people that have exposure to all of that. So the more that you can cover, the more it helps you, but you do need some depth at those and not just 6 months in each area. That gives you a good foundation, but it doesn't really bring in the level of expertise, excuse me, that many companies are looking for today. Project management, it raises its head again. It's always in there lately. Customer service, customer awareness, being able to see that and understand how to translate what you're doing into something that will generate value for the customer and improve customer service perception. Just managing the supply chain overall. Continuous improvement. I have a green belt and I am very experienced with Six Sigma and Lean. And so this is an area that I spend a lot of time working with clients on. How do we improve this and how do we continue to improve? So, and I tell my students, good enough is never good enough for very long. So you might hit that threshold and pat yourself on the back and go have a nice party or a dinner, but then it's back to, okay, now what do we do next? We got this high, now we have to get a little bit higher and a little bit higher. Planning is part of supply chain, so understanding planning, S&OP processes, and a lot of those types of things, the demand side of things and how that translates through MRP systems, ERP systems, and then a lot of other skills that get dumped into this thing. So you can see that it's still, I wish I could say these are the top 3 skills that you need in supply chain, but it isn't that simple and it isn't that clean, but there are a lot of opportunities. So here's yet another 2023 survey of over 300 supply chain executives. 50% of these senior executives acknowledged that they had a talent shortage, gaps in the talent on their team versus what they wanted and thought they should have. 64% of these 300 executives said that their top challenge in attracting new talent is that people don't have the appropriate skill sets. So they look at a lot of candidates, but they say they lack in significant areas. And so they pass on these these candidates for lots of different reasons. And especially they're saying that they need people who can tackle unprecedented challenges in a rapidly changing landscape, which means they need people that are flexible, that are thinking outside the box, and they don't want people who are relying on their laurels and their experience. Oh, I know how to do that. They really want people who can and express to them during the interview process. You may feel like this is you, but if you haven't expressed to that potential hiring manager that you really are able to tackle these new challenges and you can handle a landscape that changes all the time versus what used to be fairly stable periods of time, then this is what these executives are saying. And we know that this is increasing amounts of complexity in our field in supply chain because the technology is going, crazy. Blockchains. What are blockchains? How do I use blockchains? Artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, circular supply chains. What do these things mean? And just because I can talk to a topic and say, oh, I understand the concept of a circular supply chain, but can I implement that in my business today? Can I figure out how we can start to move more toward a circular supply chain? Most managers, senior managers, aren't saying we need to get from A to Z very quickly, but we need to get in that direction and start making some progress. We might need to get from A to B to C to D this year and then move forward next year. So when we're looking at increasing changes in technology, that's one thing. Sustainability, all of the environmental regulations and suggestions and all of those aspects come into play. The market dynamics are changing. We're looking at a lot of geopolitical things that we're having to look at and consider. We're considering not only where do we want new sourcing to come from, to emanate from, but what are we going to do with our current supply chain? There's a lot of companies that are looking and saying, wow, I'm doing a lot of business in China. And maybe it's not just me, but my tier between what I do directly with China and what my tier one suppliers do with China, that could be a risk if something happens, if these relationships don't get solidified, and if there's other things that pop up. There's a lot of tension in the world and a lot of, especially in an election year like this, and this election year is like it's only March and it's still unlike any I've seen. The divisiveness and the infighting and all of that. What does that mean to yourself and to your company? And that's what, as managers, we're being asked by the executive managers, and the executive managers are being asked, what does this mean to the company? This company's been here for 85 years. It's successful. We're doing this. Now, what do we do? Do we have to change something? And if so, what do we have to change? So we need people with skills that can make these assessments, come up with some options and some suggestions, and help us actually implement those things. In that same survey with these 300 senior execs, 50% of the respondents said their biggest challenges were: one, changes in geopolitics and trade policies; rising inflation, which I think the latest numbers say they're down considerably over what they were a year or two years ago. And yet there's still a lot of what do we feel versus what do we see? What do the numbers say? And then talent shortage right there, 50%. For hiring issues, they say, again, 64% of these managers said it's finding the right skill set, which is really apparently difficult to do. I know a number of people who are looking for jobs right now. A couple people, I went to an ISM event in the last couple of weeks, and there were a couple of people there who were recently let go from their company. And so they're now looking for that. And yet still companies are saying we can't find people with the right skill sets. And the candidates say, I have all these skills. How can they not see that these are the right skill sets? So there's definitely not a match. And it may be a communication match or an understanding on either part or both parts of what is needed, required, wanted in that area. Talent shortages in data analytics, 58%. Hence, like I said, we have a new major that's called data analytics. Reduction in time to hire. So good talent is getting snapped up quickly. So if you want to move, you're going to have to move fast. Retaining talent is a problem, reducing the turnover. This is augmented by the talent shortage and the low unemployment rate, but it's also exacerbated by how many people want to work from home or want a hybrid job where they can work from home 3-4 days a week and go into the office one day or maybe two. Companies that want people on site full time are having a harder time hiring people because people are saying, no, I don't want to do that. I'm happy to do that maybe even 4 days a week, but I want to work one day from home So there's a lot of negotiation going on like that. And then diversity in the talent pool. So what is the diversity that companies are looking for? I'm not exactly sure. This article, of course, did not go into detail there, but we're looking for people who can augment, who maybe have some different skill sets, which I think is a good thing, because we don't want to hire people that are cookie cutters of the people we already have. It's the old Einstein definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So when we're hiring, we want to look for what else do we need? So we'll look a little bit at that. Um, so there's a lot of the skills that people have and that people want, companies want, but companies want them because people on the executive staff, managerial hiring staff say this is what we want. So when we have these gaps, let's look a little bit of what goes on in the business when this happens. When this is you feeling like you're stressed about your job, you are you're the hiring manager, you're trying to get somebody in, you just lost somebody good and you want to get somebody else in, or you've got a gap, you've got a new assignment, you don't have the skills to do that. And even if you've been there, you've got a good team, but now you're getting asked to do more and more. Now they want to say, okay, how can we start to use artificial intelligence? How can we start to use the Internet of Things? How do we apply blockchain to this part of the business? And if you don't know and aren't familiar with that, you can be very stressed out. You can have a lot of anxiety from that, right? And when we do that, we take it out on sometimes our families, our coworkers. Sometimes the dog is the one that gets yelled at or doesn't get the attention he or she needs or is used to. We lose sleep or we don't stay asleep. We have interrupted sleep, which is not a good thing, because the worst thing you can do to yourself is to not get a good night's sleep and then have to get up and go into a contentious meeting or keep fighting that fire that you've been fighting or dealing with all these extra requirements. High turnover is something we're seeing in lots of businesses, and even with companies that didn't traditionally have hiring retention issues. They're seeing more and more of that. It brings out a lack of confidence in people, and we all get pressure to do more with less. We all are tightening budgets. There's been the uh, aura of inflation, recession over us. So companies have tightened their belts considerably. And that's not a bad thing. But when that starts to pinch and you feel like you can't do things, you don't have the budget to do anything that you want, and everyone is asking for more and more and more results, but you're not getting different resources or more assistance to help do those, then people start that do loop over again. We feel stress, anxiety, and we lose sleep. So it impacts the people that are involved. If you lose your job, obviously that's stressful, anxiety. Even if you have a really good severance package, you're still like, okay, now what? And people are worried. Do I have to move? Do I have to do this? What about my spouse? My spouse has a good job. My spouse hates their job. Where is this? Or my partner? And does that mean we should consider going somewhere else? Or is or? So just a lot more decisions to make. But it impacts companies as well, the talent shortage and the talent issues. Well, about 25 execs overall have said they need talent, and they're looking for, again, some of these very soft skills or hard to define things. They want people who are adaptable. Okay, I think I'm adaptable, but my boss says I'm not. So how do we reconcile that? Or what am I not doing that they think I should be doing that would prove to them that I am adaptable? Problem solvers. We always have problems in supply chain. So how do we solve those problems as quickly as possible, as thoroughly as possible, put some prevention type things in place and make sure that we're not getting the same problems over and over? Again, with the data analytics, this sense of urgency has always been one of my issues, but I'm seeing that more and more in some of the literature, that means you know what to do first. You don't have to have a prioritized list. You inherently understand where the triage situation is and which ones are the most important, and you manage to get done what you need to get done. So you have that sense of urgency, and that motivation factor comes up again. In this Forbes study, they say up to 37% of all open jobs are looking for these certain skills, and that's like 44 million jobs. And I'm sorry, this is a bad bullet. This 37% relates to all open jobs being related to supply chain. So of all the 44 million jobs roughly that are available today or have been available over time, that number is roughly 44 million. 37% are related to supply chain in some aspect. And 64% of companies say they're experiencing gaps right now. And these gaps are multifaceted. Like I said, they're looking for people with more than just procurement experience. They want this range of skills. So if you felt good about that first list of procurement skills, that's good. But they're looking for growth skills. They're looking for these soft skills. They're looking for more business skills, more relationship skills, all of these kinds of things that I've been talking about. Why is this? Why do we have this situation? Well, like I said, the unemployment is low. That's a good thing. So people can change jobs pretty quickly and find new places. There's a whole series of pundits saying that they think companies are expecting too much. They have an open position and they want to find the person that is just perfect, and that perfect person does not exist. They're looking for a broad range of expertise and experience. So, and these are not necessarily all residing in one person, which is, oh, yeah, we really need somebody who can do this and this and this and this and this. That's great, but it might take 3 people to cover those areas. So the whole trade, logistics, customs, that's an area in demand. But if that's not your area of expertise, you have other expertise in operations or the procurement side of things, relationship management, managing risk in suppliers, whatever, then this can be a reason, oh, well, but you really don't know enough about the logistics piece of the business. So we're going to pass because we really want somebody who can do all of that. This corporate social responsibility, being able to translate what that means into the company and then throughout the supply base. This is an important thing. And how do we address this with domestic companies as well as international suppliers and whatever? Flexibility, of course, people want flexibility in a way different way than employers want flexibility. Employers want you to be flexible to work more hours, longer hours on their kinds of schedules, and people want to be able to take more time off, work more hybrid and work from home type things, work different hours than the standard kind of 8 to 5, whatever. And then global travel is still a requirement. That was something I always enjoyed in working in the corporate environment, but I worked with people who really did not like that, and they were not happy about the travel, either domestic or global. And those are long flights to go to Asia and to Europe, and they're long trips, and you come back tired and jet lagged and a lot of those things. So some people embrace that and others avoid that, but it's still a requirement of the job. But there are other concerns with that now too, with like, for instance, the issue with the Boeing planes and still the pandemic things and the health issues of that. Being on a plane for 12 hours, if there's anybody that's sick on there, your chances of getting that go up considerably if you're sitting on that plane for 12 hours, regardless of where you're sitting in relation to where they're sitting. The pace of adding systems is exceeding the talent available to add those systems. So again, companies are saying, oh, we need to be into AI. Let's go get some artificial intelligence. Okay, we're going to get this that can do that. Now let's put it to work. Oh, we don't have anybody to do that. Uh-oh, what do we do now? Or you hire consultants to implement a new MRP, ERP system for you. Oh, great. But they told us it could do all of these things. And now when I try to do that, it's really not working that well. I'm having problems here, problems there. So that can be an issue. In spite of the fact that companies are frustrated with talent gaps, they don't have good hiring plans and strategies. So for instance, they don't say, this is what we need most. The next person that we hire should be able to do this, or we need expertise in this area. So if and when a position opens up, we're going to find somebody to do that. Or they don't look at augmenting talent, a different type of talent. I've seen companies and departments who say, oh, that person, they've only been in procurement for a couple of years. They may have extensive experience in the finance realm, in the maybe quality realm, in engineering, but oh, we need somebody that can do more buying. Well, maybe we can teach them the buying and we can use their skills in this other area to augment and make our team stronger. So we need to think about that. If you have hiring plans and real strategies with those that it takes time to develop and put in place, then you follow those. Because the worst thing you can do is have a hiring plan and then not follow it. Understanding the gaps in your organization. Again, this is an area where you want to make sure that the key managers, the key decision makers in your company agree on where the gaps are so that you don't pat yourself on the back and hire someone that you think is the best because they have these skills and your manager says, we don't have these skills. Why didn't you get someone who could do that? And it might not be your manager, it might be your support group. It might be another function in the company that says, you guys are good at hiring X, but I'd like to see you hire Y once in a while. And then budgets, right? We all have budget issues, and that's always a constraint in a company. So now that you understand these skills, let's look at how you can identify the gaps. If you're a manager, you need to be honest with yourself and about yourself and your team. And as an individual, you need to be honest about yourself, not overly critical, but open to taking that information in on to where you can improve. So I don't believe in masochism because we can all beat ourselves up pretty easily and readily. But if you can't hone in on a couple of key areas, then the improvement plan is more difficult and you just don't put that plan together because the gap is so big. So this gap analysis is really worthwhile. You need to look at the ways you can close the gaps. And we'll talk about some of those in just a second, but you need this hiring plan that's going to help you get there. And you need to look at it short term and long term. One of the things I always counsel people on, and I did this in the corporate world as much as I do now with my clients, is that both managers and employees have responsibility for talent development, career development, those kinds of things, improvement plans. This is not something that the manager owns, that they say, here's the 6 things you need to go do to get this promotion. And it's not totally up to the employee for the manager to say, well, sorry, we don't have any money. We don't have this. You're just on your own. But oh, by the way, you do need to improve because if you want that promotion, you're not ready for that yet. So how do we do this collectively? You do need some senior leadership support and sponsorship. You're going to need some resources, some funds, some ways to do this. Creative thinking is good here. There's a lot of ways that companies can come up with things. You're going to need to model the skills and behaviors if you're a manager that you want people to have. And if you want your manager to support you, you want to model the skills and behaviors that they are looking for and that you think are going to align with that next position that you want. And you've got to have prioritization. You've got to say, this is the top need, this is next. And it would be great to have this, but it's about number 10 on the list. So even though this person is the best writer or project manager that we've ever had, if we really don't need that as much as we need somebody who can read some financial statements and do some financial analysis, then we should not hire that person. And so you want to look at, again, utilizing your gap analysis, look where you can borrow and train resources. You can borrow financial people to do some lunch and learns with financial bent on them, teach people about payback periods and reading financial statements, things like that. I always say, don't choose what the easiest thing is. Don't just pick oh, we need more data analytics, so we're going to send somebody to Excel class. Excel class might be great, but that may not be the real place where you need to do that. And as always, any kind of learning opportunity needs to be partnered with application. You can go to the best webinar, take the best class, go to the conference, and the ISM conference is coming up, I think, next month. You can do all of those things, but if you can't apply those learnings, then it's going to be a distant memory very quickly, and you're not going to be able to really recoup the value and the return on the investment of that training, conference, or whatever it was. So that's important. And then lastly, coaching is always important too. So here's some ways to do that. I'm going to give you 3 different ways you can look at some 3 different steps that you can take. So the first one is really to identify these skills and, again, conduct your own gap analysis. You can do heavy gap analysis with an external company that comes in, and you can ask people to fill out a lot of surveys and do things. And those can be really good if you know what you're getting into, and those can be very disappointing. So before you spend your money on that, you might want to make sure that you understand what you're going to get out of that. Take a look at that skill analysis, what they do, ask them what they've done with other companies and that kind of thing. Performance evaluations are a great place to go back and look and say, what are we missing? What are we telling people that we're not getting done? And don't even look at it in terms of an individual, but what are the things that are not getting accomplished or aren't as accomplished as easily and readily as we think they might be. So even take names out of it, just look at what is the work that's not getting done. Then look at any objectives that you missed, especially this time of year. It's really great to look at 2023 and say, what did we not do last year that we wanted to get done? Where are the gaps that are still there? Something that we didn't accomplish or we talked about before, and we still know that this is something that needs to be done. So look at any objectives and deadlines that you might have missed or passed up or are aging or getting close, and then say, all right, how do we close these gaps? Any of the disruptions you have from suppliers, quality issues from the production floor, from external factors like strikes or any of that kind of thing. Look at where your disruptions have been in the near term past, not back. Don't go back pre-pandemic because it's a different world, but in the last, say, 6 months or year, where are the major disruptions? Where did they come from? And what caused those, and what's the likelihood of those happening again, or where do we think the next one's coming from? Unmet expectations of your employees as well as the managers of the people, and then talent that you might have lost in the last year. Did you lose a person that you thought was very valuable to the organization, and why did that happen? So it's always important, again, to make sure that you look for ways to borrow and train people, do whatever it takes to find those people. You can pick local universities. They will have people that will come in. You can sometimes partner with a class, like an engineering class or supply chain class, where professors love real world examples to get their students working on. It's free for the company that does that. You just need to provide some resources to oversee, to explain, to kind of coach and work with the people that are actually doing that. But companies can get really good return on that little bit of reaching out, and like I say, the professors love it and the students love it too, because it's a real world thing. It's not just reading a textbook that tend to be pretty boring. So look for ways that you can borrow resources and train people through other experiences. Always reach out through organizations like ISM, but don't be afraid to reach out to your local ASCM that used to be APICS if you need some help with inventory management or whatever, or CSCMP if you need logistics or any kind of trade information, freight and all of that. So reach out to where there is talent and see what is available to work with. Again, don't choose the easiest necessarily and say that, well, I tried, I sent that person to an Excel class and they still don't get it. Okay, that's again back to managers and employees both are responsible for this. So if they went to the Excel class, then you need to say, what did you learn? And before they went, I hope you said, this is what I want you to come back with, knowing how to do pivot tables, knowing how to do VLOOKUPs or whatever you think that is very important on that. There's lots of webinars, seminars, consultants. You guys are all here today, so this is available, and this is free to most people for lots of things. But again, apply the learnings and never underestimate coaching. Coaching is one of the things that that people sometimes neglect. And we think of coaching in terms of athletes, like, Tom Brady, or I'm from Kansas City, and the Chiefs are all over the news from winning that double Super Bowl, and Andy Reid and doing this and that and the other. And we're coming up on baseball season. So coaches do this and coaches do that. And we think of it in terms of athletes, but it's not just athletes, it's day-to-day kinds of things. So the Human Capital Institute and International Coach Federation said that 78% of employees and 75% of executives value coaching. So that's telling you most people in the workplace value some kind of coaching. But only 24% of the companies said they have coaching as a fixture in the organization, a real way to get people coaching. And only 22% believe employees have equal opportunities for coaching. So a real quick story, I worked with a female CPA. She was no longer with that company, but she'd been with them for quite a while. She said early in her career, she had the opportunity. She was at a CPA firm and it was kind of cutthroat. She wanted a promotion and she wasn't sure what to do. So she went in to talk to her boss and said, I really want this promotion. I'm not sure how I'm going to get that, but I want you to know that I think I'm qualified and I'm ready for that. And her boss said, well, you could meet with me on a regular basis. And she said, oh, that would be great. And he pointed outside his window at the people outside his office and said, your two colleagues out there, and they were both male. He said, they've been doing that for the last 3 months with me. They came in very early and asked me for that one-on-one time so that I could help them further their careers. So sometimes it's a matter of asking. As a busy manager, you might not say, oh yeah, I'm going to do this for everybody. And you might say, I will do this for who's interested, and then wait to see who's interested. So if you are, you need to step up to that. Also, this chart shows that really people learn from structured learning, you learn about 10%. From learning from others on the job and whatever, about 20%. But through experience, which means if you can combine some structured learning, some OJT with this experiential part, this is where the retention comes in. So this is where you're really getting the bang for the buck, but you have to be able to apply that so that they understand how that works with the system. So what you really want to do is turn into a learning organization. You want to make sure that people have the vision, that your company has the vision for that, and that you are presenting and in an environment where that's conducive to learning, that supports that supports development. It needs to be reality based. You can't say, yeah, we're all going to go get masters and PhDs degrees, blah, 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 or even ISM certifications. But it is important to be reality based, but also to find ways to help people. It is a change. Most organizations are not considered learning organizations by the Harvard Business Review definition, which says a learning organization is an organization skilled at creating, acquiring, and transferring knowledge, and at modifying behavior to reflect new knowledge and insights. So there's a lot of different things we need with that in order to be able to do that. One of those is change management. And another is to make sure, I like these 3 M's. The training has to be meaningful, it has to be manageable, and it has to be measurable. So what results are you looking for? And sometimes it's indirectly related. If I train you on this part of financial analysis, then I'm not going to go test your financial analysis like I test you in an accounting class. But what I am going to do is to say, how are you managing your suppliers, and how are you managing your cost model and your cost reductions that reflect that training? So what is make it meaningful, manageable, and then somehow give you some measures, which takes some work to think about that. So that's what we want to do. So we want to think about in your organization. I don't know which of these types of skills is the most important to you. Maybe you could put in the chat right now where you think in your organization the biggest gap is. Is it in those procurement skills? Is it in the growth skills, or in maybe in the soft skills? So I'm going to give you a minute to do that and just say that, I want you to think about who's in your corner and who's going to help you navigate through these challenges in your own business. I told you in this presentation I would give you insights into the skills, those first four slides we went through with the variety of skills. And now we talked about what happens when you don't get them, either to yourself or to your organization. And then what is happening to your company when you don't get that, and what's going to happen going forward. And then I hope I've given you a couple of ideas and ways to close those gaps, because I really love helping supply chain people close the gaps in their staff, trying to get better skills, getting more talented, reliable people in the organizations. Because I know that closing gaps in the organization increases the retention the company has. It helps attract other better employees to that in the future. And I know how to close these gaps because I've done it before, and I help my clients do it all the time. So if you are looking for ideas for how to do this, to find solutions for your gap problem, you can book a call with me to discuss this. So there's my call with Jane. That takes you directly to my calendar, and then you can set up a time. And right now I've got 5 slots that I'm for the first 5 people in the next few days that do this. I'm giving these away for free, and I promise to have a follow-up with that, and I have a couple other freebies on that. So if you are interested in talking more about this, I strongly encourage you to do that now. As I said, I'm passionate about this topic, creating and designing solutions for people to get their talent goals met in this calendar year. And it was one of the major drivers for me to decide to go out and do this as a service to my to clients, because it's something that I enjoy doing, and it's something that I saw a need for. So this call will talk about anything you want to talk about in terms of the skills, what challenges you have, what skills you might look at, what some options are. And if you do that now, then I always encourage people do it by the end of the day, because tomorrow there's another day and a whole nother set of challenges. So I'm going to leave you with this, and then I'll take some questions. Here's the discussion in the executive dining room, I guess. We don't have those anymore, but if here's 2 people talking. Well, what happens if we do all this investment and develop our people and then they leave? And the response should be, what happens if we don't and they stay? Then where are we going to be if we don't get the talent developed and we don't develop our own talent? So with that, that's the end of my presentation. I hope to hear from some of you soon, and I'll take questions or comments, whatever. I see no one put anything in the chat. That's always
No questions yet. Jane, I did want to ask you, I know you touched upon briefly about the certifications, different type of things you could do. I've heard different people talk about the MBA versus any of the certifications, whether it's ISM or another certification. What is your feeling on it, for the audience?
Well, that's a good question. And if you go back to Kathy's introduction, like I have all of these things, right? But I didn't necessarily get them in any particular order. When I teach I teach college students and they say, oh, MBA, MBA, or master's, master's. And I say, okay, if you know what you want to do, you can go get a master's. For myself, I waited, my undergraduate's in engineering and I worked as a manufacturing engineer. I waited 10 years and I didn't wait necessarily, but it was 10 years before I felt like, oh, now I'd like to go back to school and get some more business um, classes, because I didn't have those. I had engineering classes and they were great. And I was a good engineer, but I was in management by that time. And I thought, I really don't understand this. I haven't had basic accounting. And I thought, if I'm going to go back, I'm going to go back and get a master's. So I went back and got my master's. That actually helped me transition into supply chain with that master's degree. And then after I got into supply chain, I said, hey, I really like this stuff. And then I looked around and said, well, I think I'm going to go get this CPSM. And so I got a CPSM. Once I had the CPSM, the CPSD was an easy one additional test. Something that I was really passionate about was supplier diversity. So that came naturally. And the green belt came as a kind of a result of my company offered this training, and I had a good background in that kind of stuff from my industrial engineering degree. And so I think each one is unique. You don't have to do any of those. CPSM, and by the way, I should promote this. I'm doing a CPSM class that just got started. If anybody's interested in that for exam 1, you can contact me, and it's not too late to sign up because I'm only like 2 sessions in. So if you want to do that certification, there's lots of certifications. There's lots of certificates you can get through extension colleges. Oftentimes here I'm in Los Angeles, UCLA, through their extension program, has a certificate program that's like 6 or 8 classes, modules, not terribly expensive for an individual or a company. A master's degree, of course, is more time and money commitment. So you might want to start with a certificate program or like a CPSM. CPSM, as you know, 3 exams. Over time, you need to do that. The CPSM training is not inexpensive. I had one woman who was really excited about this. And when I told her, this is what it takes, 3 exams, here's the things, sent her to the website, she said, wow, this is way too expensive. So I said, well, there's other ways around that. I'm certified as a CPSM instructor. You can do the ISM version, or you can work with me. I mean, lots of different ways to do that. So I always say, don't jump into one unless you really say, I think I'd like to try this. Then go take a class in, take the CPSM class or get a practice exam and do that. See how you do on that. But one size does not fit all. And there are a lot of ways to get that extra insight into whatever. It is nice if you're going to go study in a particular area that you get a certification or a certificate out of it, because that just is tangible evidence to those around you that say, I'm still interested in growing and learning and those things. And those are important. For example, I got a Scrum certification in the last year or so. I'm not a software engineer where that comes in a lot, but I thought, you know what, I kind of like to get this Scrum certification. So I did. It didn't take very long, a couple of days online and then a test online. So, do things that are interesting to you, but also that that you can show that I did something for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, because I'm sure there might be some people out there in the audience that might have had some questions about the differences, and I believe it's just the time commitment, what you can put into it, and sometimes it would be yourself, footing the bill on it, because not all companies have the training budgets for it. But thanks, Jane.
Yeah.
Um,
Say one thing about that. Ask your company to sponsor you or to co-sponsor you, to pay for part of it. So many people don't even bother. Oh, we don't pay, my company doesn't do that. Well, did you ask? And this is not something that you ask in front of everybody in a staff meeting. Hey, boss, do we pay for this? Do you pay for this? It's something to talk to your manager one-on-one. And you need your case, right? You need to say, this is why I would like to get the CPSM certification, because if I do, when I do, it covers these things. I will be able to apply this to the job, and I will be better at my job and be able to help you more and help the company more. So you need to put those cases together to say, then this is what it's going to take. I have to do 3 exams, do this on my own time and whatever. But some people say, if you ask me to do that, I want you to pay me for the time that I study and whatever. So it's, again, very personal, but always ask, will they pay for ISM membership? Maybe not, but if they tell you no, what's the worst, is that the worst scenario, that they say, no, we don't pay for that? Okay. But if you don't ask, they surely won't.
Definitely. Good advice. Good advice. Well, it looks like we are out of time, but I want to thank you, Jane, for bringing this topic and your insights to our ISM community and all our other guests out there that may not be members. Again, thank you again. Thank you to our audience, and we will be getting this recording out to everybody later today. Thanks again. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks again, Kathy, for the opportunity. Always fun to meet with you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.